What's going on, YouTube? This is Jamil here. It's been a while since I made a Yu-Gi-Oh video. I just needed more testing for my ABC deck. Now, before I get into some profiling and some stuff that I went over regarding Regionals Arlington, which I should have made this video a week ago, like literally a week ago. Should have made it, but I just needed some time to really think. Just think on it and think of what I need, the things I need to prepare for, just gather my thoughts and gather evidence and gather things and just use logical reasoning before I make this video, because it's a very controversial topic. And that topic is, again, Maxx. And the previous video I made was regarding whether or not it should be banned. Now that I've had enough time, I know at this point it should. It really should be banned. Right now, just for right now, it's one of the most unfair, unbalanced, and just game stealing and game winning cards in the entire game. At the regionals, literally every time I saw the card, I won. Simply for this. When you, right now, I'm just basing everything off right now, this very format. The format we're in is you either gotta commit or bust. That's how it is. It's like, you either just go in or bust. You gotta go for broke. You gotta set up a board. It's unavoidable. You have to, or you're just gonna lose. You're gonna lose. You're gonna either get FDK'd, or you're gonna get, outplayed, and then you're gonna get over-resourced. And Maxx further just aids in that. It just aids in not only breaking boards, not only breaking boards, but it just aids in just overkill. And let me explain. When Maxx is played, you're going to lose 3 different ways. 1, you stop right there, give your opponent the 1-for-1, and at best you're going to have 1 defensive trap set, because that's what makes Maxx even more unfair, is the fact that a lot of these decks aren't running mini traps. Back in 2012, however, I would say that Maxx is very balanced, because you had windups, you had injectors, you had Dino Rabbit, and windups, obviously, if any of you who were around at the time, Chaos and Mighty was a card to where they could just pick off your most, if not your entire hand. Pick off your hand, and you essentially couldn't play Yu-Gi-Oh with enough cards in your hand, and you would lose. But if Maxx was dropped against windups, or injectors, or rabbit, it was fine due to the fact that every single tier 1 deck was running 8 to 10 traps. It was fine. We were all running the Solemn Brigade, which was 2 warning, Judgment. We were running Bottomless. Torrential Tribute was also at 2. Compulsory Evac was at 3. But I think most were using 1, maybe 2. And so that was a very decent trap lineup. And we all ran Book of Moon. That was the other way. And we ran Book of Moon. So the chances of drawing those cards were very, very high. And you could always have a 2 set. You could always set 2 if you did get Maxx Seed, and it'd be fine. You would have something to defend yourself. And on top of that, none of those decks could just FDK you. No, they couldn't kill you in the first turn. It was almost impossible. Windups on a good day could do 6,500 damage, I believe. 6,500 damage. So you would still survive. And it'd still be good. Right now, where it's commit or bust, it's die format. It's either if you get Maxx Seed, like I said, you're going to lose 3 ways. You're going to stop what you're doing and just give your opponent the net 0. And you're just going to get FTK by your opponent, because your opponent is going to have MSD, or Twin Twister, depending on if you're playing Metal Foes or Paleozoics or not, or Heroes. But that's gonna happen. Your board's definitely you're just gonna get overhauled. You're gonna die, because in this format, all it takes is 2 to 3 cards to just say good game. That's it. It takes little to no cards to build up a board to FTK your opponent. So you essentially lost that way. Way number 2, you could give your opponent 2 to 3 draws and put up something like a Dark Law or something, or like a Overflesia. You give your opponent, 3 draws on a good day, like 2. Yeah, you got the Reflesia, you may have a set, but you're still gonna, giving your opponent 2 draws is just deadly in this format. It's very detrimental, very deadly, because everybody, we have Kaijus being played in the main, you have Twin Twisters being played in the main, you have board wipes being played in the main, and if your opponent doesn't already have them, you better be damn sure they drew it, because you gave them those 2 to 3 draws for Maxi to put up something to defend yourself. So they're Twin Twister your board, or they're going to board wipe you, they're going to Kaiju you, they're going to Cosmic Cyclone you, and your opponent still has 6 cards in their hand, and it is still good game. Or way number 3, which is a stupid way, you finish your setup, thinking that no amount of cards your opponent plays is going to bypass what you have, only to find out that your opponent has Kaijus, board wipes, and Twin Twisters, and they're still going to have 5 cards in their hand, regardless if they have 12 or 15 cards in their hand. I can have ABC, Infinity, and Dwindle on board, and I would still lose. That's the thing I'm talking about. See, nobody wants to see Max C, and I'm not saying that because I'm salty. I'm saying, in a format to where it's either go all in, or bust, you can't set up your board if you're going first, and you can't break your opponent's board if you're going second. And yes, I've done that. In fact, I did it this regional. I put up Durandal, ABC, and Cyber Dragon Infinity on board, not giving a shit. My opponent draws, and I just drop Max C immediately on the draw phase, because I'm that confident that I was going to win, and I knew for a fact I was, because even with board wipes in hand, even with Kaijus in hand, your opponent still has to special summon to break your board. So it's not enough that you already have an OP stun board on board already, but now my opponent is going to get even further punished because I have Max C. And if by some miracle they do blow past my board, they exhausted all of their resources doing so, and I'm starting my turn with 5 to 6 cards again, and my opponent has no chance of winning. Especially when we're in a format to where when you lose what you have on board, first off, what you have in hand is what you're going to have on board. What you have in hand is going to be the resources, the same amount of resources that are going to be on board. And, the exception to that is obviously going to be water, aka Mermel, and Metal Foes, to where you can start with a 5-card hand, it's to have 5 cards on field and 3 to 4 cards in your hand still. That's that. Metal Foes, you're just going to have everything on field. You're just going to have like a 9-card field, like an 8-card field, which is still very crackable because they're not using counter traps. The only defensive card they use is extra deck monsters that stun and Kieran, and Kaijus can easily do that. They can do the job, and there's enough spells in the game to handle that stuff, especially if you're drawing them with Max C. Now, even if I didn't go first, you can be damn sure I can break my opponent's board. If I can make Nova, Infinity, and ABC, and I went second, and I drop Max C, I'm drawing everything. I'm really drawing as many things as I need to not only break my opponent's board, but still overkill. I want to draw more Dark Holes, more Twin Twisters, so I can bait shit, still have extra shit left over and push. Now, back to the thing at hand. I think I may have started something here. Now, people will still believe that it is still the most balanced card in the game because your opponent doesn't go crazy turn one and have absurd boards, which can easily be cracked if you may add. As long as Kaijus and Twin Twisters are in the game, you're fine. See, 2012, Maxx was needed because we didn't have those cards. We didn't have Gamma Seals. We didn't have Twin Twisters. We didn't have Galaxy Cyclones. We didn't have Cosmic Cyclones. We didn't have Genkos. We didn't have those things we have today. We have all those things, so we should have no problem. I mean, yeah, it still should take some skill. And I'm not saying Maxx is, right now it's unbalanced, but I'm not saying it's ban-worthy. Right now, yes, it is definitely ban-worthy, but I'm not saying, like, it's the worst card of the game. I'm saying it takes skill out of the game. It takes it out. Similarly for the fact that, okay, what determines how good a card is? 1, its playability. 2, the risk versus reward. 3, the cost. 4, the amount of advantage it'll net you in the short run or in the long run, or both. 5, its impact on the meta. 6, the probability of winning after you resolve such a card. I mean, all those things. And I'm going to go through a list of cards and kind of explain what Maxx has over every last one of these cards. Now, first, I'm going to start with the Terratop and the Tour Guide. These are monsters like Maxx. They are incredibly good cards. They're easy +1s. In the right deck, they're +2s. These cards can do some pretty serious stuff. But, on the flip side, there is also a risk to playing Tour Guide and Terratop. Once it hits the field, it is susceptible to things like Solemn Strike. It is susceptible to getting hit by Effect Veiler. It's susceptible to Ghost Ogres, Ghost Reapers, or not Reapers, but any other potential card like Kirin, a Floodgate Trap Hole, or Rafflesia. I mean, they're vulnerable. They can be stopped. So yes, these cards are good, and they're insanely good. They can net you some pretty serious advantage, but there's a risk to it being you have to play it on the field. You have to put it in play for you to attempt to net advantage. And it's not that hard to stop these cards for that reason. Maxx, as I've said many a times, is a hand trap, which makes it infinitely harder to stop. And it being a quick effect, meaning during either player's turn, makes it to where it's essentially invincible. You will almost 100% of the time always resolve this card, simply for the fact that it is a hand trap. I mean, if you can sense a Crystal Wing coming, if you can sense a Solemn Strike coming, you can drop it. It's like, things like Terratop and Tour Guide, they can get striked, but Maxx is going to resolve before strike even sets on the field, and that's what makes it incredibly strong and incredibly powerful. There is literally no risk to playing Maxx. And now the second thing I'm going to talk about is cost. You see cards like these, Pot of Desires. It is an amazing card. It is by far one of the best cards in the current meta right now. But even it has its risks. It has a cost. First off, banish the top 10 cards from your deck. That's a cost. You mean once you get rid of those cards, you're not seeing them again for the entire game unless you're using like Cypher and Lord Omega and you're playing Light Swords or some shit. But you know what I mean. Even Pot of Desires can lose you a couple of games. They have this thing now called the Scoop Banish, because sometimes you will banish the key pieces that you need to make your plays, or banish you know, your combo pieces, whatever you need to access your cards, you will sometimes, not all the time, sometimes that, you will end up doing that, and that's the risk you have for playing this card. Also, your opponent doesn't give a fuck about Pot of Desires hitting the field, like activating it all. I mean, yes, they do, but it's not going to affect them. It's not going to affect them at all. You can't play it during their turn. You can't use it to stop them and just say, okay, now that I stopped you, I bought myself a free turn, my turn, win the game. Because in this format, all you need is one turn. Buying yourself one turn or stalling one turn is the best way to lose. Is the best way to get you killed. So, even something like Pot of Desires it could be a double-edged sword, and even then, so at its best, it is a +1. Pot of Greed, with no cost, is a +1 at best. And it is banned. Pot of Desires, I guarantee you, will hit the semi-hammer or the limit hammer. But then again, I think it's going to be a limit because damn near everybody's only playing 2 Desires anyway. So there's that. This card, 6 cents. Incredibly good card. You could draw 6 cards, potentially. You could. But again, the risk being you have to set it and hope it doesn't get hit on the end phase by a typhoon or, whatnot. And you have to flip it over and you have to bank on it resolving. It has to settle the field for a turn. It has to resolve after activating. And even then it's still a chance because you have to roll a dice. I mean, yeah, you still want to mill, but, the chance of you not drawing is still very much there. It's a 1 in 3 chance. And you have cards like these, 6M United. This came out, the Crockery Anatomy, that came out, I think, the same set as Maxx. And these cards, they're good cards. They give you draws, and they're balanced in the sense to where they have caps. There's a cap to how much advantage you can net. I mean, they made it obviously to where you can't net a potential infinite amount of advantage. Just in, by some off chance you're doing some crazy bullshit to where you can keep looping and shit, like you did with Ouroboros, and just killing your opponent's hand. They have, limits for a reason. And that's the other thing about Maxx. There is no limit to how much advantage you can net off of the card. There's absolutely zero limit, no cost, and no risk. And you can play it during your opponent's turn. The card is just absurd, and it is entirely too good, especially in a format right now to where a lot of these tier 1 decks are not running enough traps to where it's okay to sit back for a turn. And even if you have cards like Denko Seka still being played, and you have multiple Twin Twisters still being in the game, and Gamma Seal is still a card. So, I think I made my point very clear. It's like I said, Maxx takes the skill out of the game, and it just even a card like Vanity's Emptiness, to where your opponent can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! There's even a risk to playing that. First off, it has to not get blown up or banished by Cosmic Cyclone. Second, once a card on your board or your deck goes to the graveyard, it's gone. Period. There's ways out of everything. There's no way to counter Maxx. Literally, the best way you can possibly put pressure on your opponent or even do something is just side heavy slump and hope your opponent has Maxx so your opponent can just suffer for it or get punished for it. But I've never seen so many games being won simply because a card like Maxx was just in your hand and you resolved it. Maxx is a much better card than Vanity's Emptiness at stopping your opponent from playing. Just in general, it's the card is way too good. No card in the game, even a card like Heavy Storm, it was a potential like 1 for 4. Maxi is a potential 1 for 18. Like, that's some serious advantage. There is no card, there's no reason, there should not be a way for a card to net you that much potential advantage. Period. And it remained in the game, much less at 3 like it was last ban list. And it's still at 2, it is still very highly drawn. And the worst part about it is, I have a feeling Konami either A, might leave it alone, or B, might even limit it, and it becomes even more of a sack card because your chances of drawing the one-ofs are even lower, and so at that point it really becomes a sack card because by the off chance one person draws it, they're just going to win. They just got lucky and drew the one-off, and they resolved it, and they won because of it. Now again, I'm not saying that the card is forever this bad. I'm saying right now it is because A, not a lot of decks running traps, and B, you have to commit to the board. You have to. There's no other way. Too many decks are FTKing, and too many decks are putting too much pressure on the board. It's like if you're not getting FTK'd, you're getting the pressure on by meaning Dark Law, Bahamut Shark, Tree Toads, and 3/4 set. And Maxi in any deck, it doesn't help at all. It really does not help the situation. Because all it does is just help out whoever is it literally just wins the game. Literally whoever has it wins. Like, I don't see it helping anybody. Yes, it literally helps, but it just turns things into overkill. It's just unnecessary. I mean, because we have things like Kaijus now. We have Twin Twisters now. We have, multiple board wipes now. Why is a card like Maxi still legal? I don't understand. Again, if somebody wants to make a legitimate argument about Maxi and why they believe it should stay in the game for God knows what reason when we have things like Kaijus. A lot of people think Kaijus are a problem in the game, and they probably are. And I don't care how you spin it, I don't care how you slice it. At the end of the day, Kaiju is a straight 1 for 1. One card for one card. Doesn't matter how much monsters you invest into one monster, it is still one card for one card. One card in hand for one card on field. It's as simple as that. I can Kaiju over a Dark Law and still have 5 cards to play through a Tree Toad, a Bahamut Shark, and 3 back row. It's still 5 cards for 5 cards. We both have an equal chance of getting out of this. And that's fair. That's completely fair. That's how it should be done. So, again, you tell me why a cost-free, zero-risk, just such crippling card should be at multiples, much less even legal. Let me know what you guys think about what I said, and I want you to really think about that card itself. Think about all the times you've resolved the card, and think of what all it did for you, and think of what it did to your opponent based on what it left them with. Now, I'm not saying think about your opponent. Obviously you're in it to win it, but like I said, I'm all about balance. I'm all about, fair. And this is like either way you slice it. It's like Maxi is by far the best card for offense and defense. People just keep looking at it on the defensive side of it. They keep looking at it as in terms of we needed to draw cards to fend off our opponent. When they set up these boards. But have we forgotten we have Twin Twisters and Kaijus and all that? And those are balanced cards. They're all 1 for 1s. You play Twin Twister, you discard 1 card, you blow up 2 cards on your opponent's field. 1/1/1. Kaiju for 1 monster. 1/1. You have board wipes, you have Dark Holes, Ragekis. It's like you should have no problem entering your opponent's board, but Maxx C is unhealthy because it stops your opponent. It's worse than Kieran. It's worse than all those monsters that respond to your opponent because it gives you advantage for nothing. And that's it. It just I'm tired of talking about this guard. It's just, but yeah. Think of how many mindless victories you got because of it. Think of how many your opponents stopped. This format. Think of this format. Think of how many times your opponent was left with a very, very weak board because Maxx C. Because Maxx C was played. And think of what you did and what the cards you drew and the cards you already had in your hand and the things you did even with just 2 extra cards. Not even 3 or 5 or 6, but just 2. Think of what you did and think of how bad you just detrimented your opponent and then tell me still if that was fair. Because I've lost games. Like, I play Melvos and I play ABCs. Those are 2 solid Tier 1 decks. I've seen people playing those decks lose games to Tier 3 decks. Tier 2 and Tier 3 because of this one card. I don't think there's any card in the history of the game that can make a Tier 2 or a Tier 3 deck defeat an opponent because they resolve one card. Like, if a card is truly that powerful, it really should be addressed. It really should. And it's all thanks to the fact that there is absolutely no limit to how much advantage it can generate. Why is a card like that legal? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.